ownership to me in general is important, right? So being an independent artist to me is important because what I do is so different and unique. You know, it was just one of those things where, like, I've sat with a lot of labels before, and I never understand it, man. Like, I'm like, all right, dude, this is working. Like, what I'm doing is working. Why would you want to change it? You know, so I stopped sitting with people and I just started saying, you know, I'm just gonna take it into my own hands. I've always been a cat that's always loved music business. Always loved music business. You give me anything, I can sell it, you know? So, and understand branding and my brand and how to sell that brand. I mean, I started a record company and we did everything. Like, when I released my first mixtape, Central Melodies, like, it sold like 100,000 copies, right? When it came out, and it did really well independently. We took that money, reinvested it into a tour. You know, we were waiting, you know, AEG, Live Nation, they weren't calling me to do a tour. So instead, I reinvested that capital. We were renting out the venues on our own. My first tour, I rented out every single venue, and we were just selling it out, selling out, selling out. Next thing you know, I now have a tour history, and I now have a sales history of my records. Of course, now I do tours with AEG and Live Nation and all the big players. But the best thing about everything is I retain a lot of what I do because I went to them with a sales history. You know, from records to touring, merchandise, and everything. You know, once you can kind of prove your brand and you have a proven idea, you know, you have the power, you know? So it's so important, man. I tell so many young cats, young artists get in the game, take that time, man. Like, look, first off, look at what everybody else is doing and do the exact opposite. It may take you a little bit longer to get there, but once you get there, you're the only one doing it. You know, and that's what I did. You know, there's a lot of violinists out right now, but there's a lot of violinists that are, you know, covering hip hop beats and all that. And I did that in the beginning of my career, reestablishing myself. I noticed that that was a really crowded arena. So I'm like, all right, I can't continue to do all that. So I just said, you know, let me dive in and just start releasing my own records. And I did that. And then, you know, it just worked out for me. So every up and coming artist, you know, you really gotta get into your heart when you create. Don't worry about making money when you first start. Don't worry about doing something because it's gonna make money, because chances are that's just a fad. And fads, they wear out quick. You know, do something that you really believe in and it'll work out for you. With my label, we just signed another violinist. She's dope. Her name is Mappy. And she's a Caribbean violinist, right? And we dropped her record in July and it did well. It went #1 on the iTunes reggae charts. You know, so for me, I'm always looking for like alternative artists, right? I think what I do in my genre and in my lane with violinists is a huge market. You know, like I sell a lot of tickets, you know what I'm saying? Like, people come to my shows and they just like, oh shit, like, we didn't know. Like, when I did the Wiltern in LA, a lot of people walked in, the Wiltern held like 2,000 people, and that was my first time in LA, sold out. I understand what I do as far as with violinists, and the more I can empower other violinists, we can move the genre forward. So that's one end. The other side of it, I just love real artists, man, like real music, you know, people with a real message and something that's not gonna be a moment or a song. So, you know, yeah, man, like, I'm really excited. The first project we got coming out is Mappy. She's super dope and everybody already loves her. You know, I'm just gonna put my spin on it and present it to the world. So during my shows, I have quite a few kids in the audience and they play the violin. So my concert in Chicago was special because there's a young girl in the audience, and when I asked, you know, is any violinist in the house? The young girl in the audience, she put her hand up and asked her to come on stage. And those moments are everything for me because I see myself when I look at these children, you know, and it's like, I remember being, I was 10 years old when Wynton Marsalis came to my middle school. He invited me on stage to play, and I remember the way he looked at me. And when I was done, he told me, he looked at me and said, "You're gonna be something very special to the world." In that moment, you know, it was a moment, you know, I was like, man, like, and I kind of draw from that, and it's like, I remember what it felt like for me, you know, so I can only imagine what it feels like, you know, for these kids, you know, when I bring them on stage to kind of play, and that's something that they're gonna have forever because they don't even think they can do it. And I'm like, no, like, you can do it. Don't worry about these people that are in the audience. It's just you and I. And they go from thinking they can't do it to getting through it. And that's a lesson, that's a life lesson. It's like, you can do whatever you want to do. And they take that lesson, and their parents, they send me messages on social. I see it every now and then about the change that they see in their kids and all that. Man, that's beautiful. That's what life is about. You know, it's like, what's the point of having knowledge if you're not gonna give it away? You know, so I'm all for that. Her dad was in the audience tonight, and I saw him, man. He was a proud dad. He reminded me of me. He reminded me of me. And it's a beautiful thing, man. Like, you know, there's a new wave of fathers. You know, I grew up in a house where I didn't have my dad around. A lot of my friends, and we didn't have our dad around, and that was like the norm. You know, but all the dads I see and, you know, the men that are in my life, we're all great fathers. We take pride in being that. And so it's beautiful to see a dad bringing his daughter to a concert and supporting her and really being her cheerleader. You know, he was doing everything. He's like, let me hold the camera, let me get you on stage, let me get you off stage. Yeah, it was a beautiful thing. You know, that's really important.